Hi, thanks for stopping by. I'm Mike Barcus, Aquaponics Specialist for Riverbend Environmental Education Center. Come on in, let me show you the greenhouse. So what is aquaponics? Do you know what aquaponics is? Aquaponics is basically just a combination of aquaculture, raising fish in a fish tank that we have over here, and hydroponics, growing plants without any soil that we have over here. And you can see some of the roots right there. So we put these two processes together, aquaculture and hydroponics, and we come up with a process, a sustainable agricultural process called aquaponics. Now, here at Riverbend, why are we interested in aquaponics? Standard agriculture, conventional agriculture, has a very large impact on our environment. We think about the chemicals, the fertilizers, the pesticides that are used on a lot of those fields. When it rains, water is taking those chemicals off. It's coming into our water systems and it's polluting a lot of our rivers and our streams and our groundwater. So we're trying to talk about things that we can do that will be a little bit better for our land. Something like that might be sustainable agriculture methods like aquaponics, or perhaps just organic farming without any pesticides or fertilizers or herbicides that you're putting on. None of those chemicals. So that's why we're talking about aquaponics at Riverbend. We enjoy our laboratory here. We grow a lot of different things, and let me take you around and show you what we have going on. Okay, so let's start with our fish tank. In here, we've got a 250-gallon fish tank. We have tilapia in here. And these are really the engine of our process. We are feeding these fish. They're going to the bathroom, and the water is flowing through that pipe into our filter system, and then into our sump tank over here. From our sump tank, we have a pump that's down in the bottom right here, and that is pumping water up to all of our grow beds. Everywhere where you see a white pipe like that that's trickling water out, that's coming from that pipe that's down underneath here in our sump tank. And what do we have growing here? We have oregano, we have parsley, celery, we have a lemon growing here. That's a Meyer lemon. Kale, more celery. Arugula, more kale. We have ginger back here, and I'll uncover it so you can see all the ginger roots there. We've got an aloe plant. We have a bay tree. These are all bay leaves. More kale. We have bok choy growing in here. Dill. Swiss chard. Basil. Chives. Some big lettuce over there. Now these beds right here are what we call deep water culture beds. Deep water culture is a floating raft system. So this is just floating on nutrient-rich water. You can see the roots growing into the water there. And this is just insulation board that you would normally find at Home Depot or Lowe's. But this is food safe quality made by Dow Chemical. So we've got two beds here that are deep water culture beds, and they're just floating in water again, and you can see the roots there. We also have an oxygen stone in there, an air stone. So we're pumping water into there to make sure the roots get enough oxygen. Now these beds are different than the first beds I showed you, where you see all these little clay pellets. This is called hydroton. This is a clay pellet. It's an expanded clay pellet. And what this is good for is, number one, it gives the plants something to hold on to if they want to root in there, for the roots to hold on to. The other thing is that this is a perfect home for beneficial bacteria. Now, it's important to understand beneficial bacteria to understand aquaponics. Let's take a quick minute to talk about the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is the most important cycle that we need to understand to operate an aquaponics system. So I said before that we are feeding our fish, they're going to the bathroom, and that's fertilizing our plants. Something really cool has to happen in the meantime while that's all going on, and that's called the nitrogen cycle. So the fish, when they're going to the bathroom, they're producing ammonium. Ammonium is a form of nitrogen. All living things need nitrogen. That's what makes the plants green. That's what makes our cells healthy in our bodies. That's what makes plants grow and produce good, healthy cells. So we need good nitrogen to produce these plants. The fish are producing ammonium. It's a form of nitrogen, but that ammonium needs to be converted into nitrogen. How does that happen? It happens by little, teeny, microscopic beneficial bacteria. Now, usually when we think about bacteria, we think it's going to make us sick. But I want you to know we have more beneficial bacteria in our body than human cells. We actually have about 10 trillion beneficial bacteria in our body, and we've got about 1 trillion human cells. Without all those beneficial bacteria, our bodies wouldn't work the right way. So we need beneficial bacteria in our aquaponics system over here that's going to be converting that fish waste, that ammonium, first into nitrites and then into nitrates. Once it's in a nitrate form, the plants take the nitrates out of the water and clean the water back for the fish. And that's the nitrogen cycle. So how does the nitrogen cycle work outside? Outside, we have 3 ways that nitrogen comes onto the earth. We have number 1, we have animals going to the bathroom outside. Deer, rabbits, squirrels, chipmunks, you name it, they're going to go to the bathroom outside. They're going to be producing ammonium, just like I just explained. That's one way. The next way that we have to produce nitrogen outside on the land is by plants decaying. They already have nitrogen in their leaves and in their stems. They're going to deteriorate. They're going to decompose into the soil, and they're going to put more nitrogen back into the soil. What's the third way? The third way happens to be my favorite. I always get excited about this one. The third way that we get nitrogen on our land out in the world is from lightning. Lightning, very interesting. So let me explain. We know that this air that I'm breathing right now is about 78% nitrogen. So I should be able to just take a breath, hold it in, and get all the nitrogen I need. Nope. When I breathe it out, all the nitrogen comes right back out. The nitrogen in the air is bound with oxygen. It's a really tight bond. My body can't break that bond apart. There's something in nature, though, that has enough power to break that bond apart. It's a lot of electricity, and it happens sometimes during rainstorms. Do you know what it might be? Lightning, yes, lightning. So when we have a rainstorm and lightning happens, it breaks the bonds of the nitrogen and the oxygen, and the nitrogen can fall down to earth with the rain. So that's the third way that we get rain, that we get nitrogen on our planet. Now, with aquaponics, we use one of those methods. Do you know what one of those 3 methods is? Animals, right. Just like the first one I talked about on how we get nitrogen outside onto the planet, animals. So in aquaponics, we're using the animal method. We're just using tilapia in our system. We've got our fish that are producing our ammonium for us. And that's the way we are completing the nitrogen cycle, or starting the nitrogen cycle in aquaponics. Okay, let's see how hungry these tilapia are right now. Pretty hungry. You also might have noticed that we have a third way that we're growing in here, And these are what we call vertical towers. So these towers are just hanging above our fish tank. We have plants planted in small felt bags, and we use coconut coir inside of those bags. Coconut coir is just the ground up outside of the coconut. We have lemon balm growing in these vertical towers here. And we have a pump that's pumping water up that's in the fish tank that's connected to a timer. So 2 times a day for about 15 minutes, water is pumped up to the top of the system. And you can see the little pipe up there. And it trickles down through the vertical tower, feeding the plants. So it's another way of growing in an aquaponic environment. And you can imagine, we don't normally utilize the space that's up in the air here to grow food. So we could actually have vertical towers lining this greenhouse. If we weren't giving tours in here, we could have vertical towers lined up, and we could be utilizing all of this space up top that we normally don't use. And there are some commercial farmers that are using this technique to grow their crops right now. Something cool to notice here with the deep water culture system is how close we can plant these plants together. So if anyone does any gardening, you'll know a technique called square foot gardening, where we divide a garden into 1 square foot sections. The reason for doing that is that typically in garden soil, 1 plant can be supported by 1 square foot of soil. So now you can see here, just right here, this is 1 square foot, and I have 4 plants right here in 1 square foot. And that's because every bit of water underneath these plants has the same amount of nutrients. So in soil, if there's only enough nutrients for 1 plant, you could only plant 1 per square foot. In an aquaponic environment where we have this many nutrients in the system, we can really plant things a lot closer together, like all that bok choy back there. In addition to aquaponics being a very sustainable form of agriculture, aquaponic systems also tend to be very good at teaching environmental science. We can actually relate everything in this greenhouse, all the different components, to actual things that exist on our planet. Let me show you how that works. So on our planet, where is the most amount of water? It's in our oceans. In our aquaponic system, the most amount of water is in our fish tank. So we're going to just label this. And there's our ocean right there. On our planet, we have things like lakes, our second biggest bodies of water, maybe the Great Lakes. So where's our lake in the aquaponic system? Maybe it's our sump tank underneath here. Let's go ahead and label that. On our planet, we also have river systems too. What do you think the river system would be in this kind of a aquaponic system? Maybe the pipes that are coming from the fish tank and flowing into our lake? I'll agree with that. Let's go ahead and label the pipes. And that's our river system right there. On our planet, we also have land. What would the land be in our aquaponic system? Maybe it's just like this. Maybe it's our grow bed. And maybe we've got a farm on our land. And you can see how important it is to not put chemicals on our land, because if it rained on this land, the chemicals would go down, and where would it go? They would end up in our lake, in our rivers, and back in our ocean as well. Now, on our planet, we also have sunlight that helps our plants grow. So what do we need in here? Well, we're in a greenhouse, so we do have natural sunlight from the glass on the roof, but we also have LED grow lights here. How about wind? Wind's really important. Why is wind important? Wind's important to spread pollen, to keep the plants cool. We have a fan in here. Maybe that's acting as our wind. Let's label that. There's our wind. Now, can you notice what the plants are doing when the fan blows on them? They're moving, right? That's probably the most important part of having wind in the greenhouse, moving the plants. Just like us, plants need to move to stay healthy. If they don't move, they'll get weak and they'll fall over. So just like we need to go run around outside and exercise to strengthen our muscles, plants also need to move, and by moving, they're going to strengthen their stems, and they're going to be a much healthier plant. So you can see how we relate the different parts of the aquaponics system to our globe. We've got our ocean, we have our lake, we have our river system, we have the land that we live on, we have our sunlight, and we have wind. So thanks for joining me today on this virtual tour of our aquaponics greenhouse at Riverbend Environmental Education Center.